What's up, Packers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Draft, brought to you by Badger State Brewing in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Today, we're going to take our first look at a safety prospect. We've had a number of discussions about Green Bay needing to shore up the back end and kind of the different ways that new defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley would use his safeties as opposed to kind of how Joe Barry did it, and frankly, how Brian Gutekunst kind of acquired players, with multiple skill sets. You can be a little bit more specific if you're going to play a ton of cover one and a cover three with the kind of players that you get. There's sort of a center fielder, right, and an enforcer. And it's tougher to be an enforcer, and I wrote about this at Pack Report. It's tougher to be an enforcer nowadays just because the rules and the way that receivers are protected, tight ends are protected, and the Cam Chancellor knock you out cold is not necessarily as much of a part of the game as it used to be. Not saying that's a bad thing, but just knocking somebody's head off from strong safety position is maybe not what it once was as far as like a box to check when you're kind of evaluating this guy. Tyler Nubin, safety out of Minnesota. A guy who probably had a chance to be a top 100 pick last year, went back to school. Now I think he's going to be a top 50 pick. That's my opinion on Tyler. But very, very interested to see his athletic testing. And that's based on stuff I've seen on film, not just because, he's an unknown prospect. He's not an unknown prospect. He's a good player and somebody that, has been in people's, top 50s, top 60s for this class during the whole thing. This is not a burst onto the scene type player. Tyler Nubin was, largely regarded as one of the best 2 or 3 safeties in this class when I started looking at this class. So Tyler Nubin is definitely a player that has been on the radar. The first thing that jumps out to me is he is a sound tackler, man, especially the last 2 years. 2021 to be, 3 seasons or 2 full seasons, before this. 13 missed tackles. That number was 6 this year. He missed 6 tackles, still playing basically every down, 768 snaps for the Gophers this year. Nubin was hard to pull off the field. And again, tackling machine, made plenty of tackles, didn't miss tackles. So that to me was impressive after I thought kind of a shaky, I don't even know how to qualify these. I would say sophomore season. That's why I was kind of fumbling with my words just because COVID has screwed up the designations of what these players even are. But again, very impressive tackling and getting guys on the ground. That's something that I think, Packers fans, after what they've seen from these safeties coming down in the alley, playing that Joe Barry style and whiffing, and Darnell Savage is certainly the poster child for that, but he's not the only one with that problem. I hope people understand that. I really was impressed with Nubin's ability to be consistent and not necessarily like lunging at guys. Like I'm impressed with the way that he takes angles, the way that he secures tackles, the way he tackles with his head up, the way he gets guys on the ground. Tyler Nubin, excellent tackler, especially the last 2 years. The ball production is super real. And, I know, especially when we talk defensive backs, this isn't about box score scouting, but that's something that just jumps off to me. 13 college interceptions, that's real understanding of the game of football. An additional 13 pass breakups, so 26 times, he got his hands on the ball in college. That is real ball production. 2 forced fumbles as well. Is he Antoine Winfield Jr., who also went to Minnesota? I don't know about that. Better size, a lot better size than Antoine Winfield Jr., but maybe not the instincts that you have when Antoine Winfield Sr. is your dad. Nubin, though, very instinctual, very excellent, actually playing the football, which is something that the Packers don't have. That's, we'll get to that when we talk Packers fit, but playmaking is something that Nubin did, and it's not something that Green Bay had in their arsenal this last year. It just really isn't. Okay, next thing, last 3 years of passer rating against. So when a quarterback throws into his coverage, what's their passer rating? I think I mentioned in one of the tweets about Jeff Hafley, the average passer rating last year in the NFL was 89.0. That was average, league average. Well, for the last 3 seasons, if you're throwing at Nubin, your pass rating has been 39.6, 41.3, and 21.5. That is obviously well below 89.0. And of course, you translate that to NFL talent, NFL receivers, all that. But it was a no-fly zone. I mean, he just doesn't get beat. And that is, kind of the definition of playing safety. He's not getting beat. He was as I mentioned, productive with the ball, but it's not like he's a gambler. He's not. Um, he's just so rock solid. Reminds me a little bit of Adrian Amos. I'd be interested to see how they match up athletically, but just always in the right place, man. And that is something that the Packers could use from one of their two safety spots. That's for sure. Versatile player. 198 snaps in the box, 84 snaps as a slot corner last year, and 469 snaps as that deep safety. That's where I think he could fit in with the Packers, is that deep safety, pending, there's some bars for me at least that he needs to clear athletically to really trust him as a cover one safety. That's a premium position. Really only the greats, are effective at it. And if you have a bad one, it's problematic. But man, I think about the way the Green Bay used Nick Collins as a center fielder, the archetype, of course, Earl Thomas with the Baltimore, or excuse me, eventually with the Baltimore Ravens, but first, certainly with the Seattle Seahawks. Like, that's the archetype of that player. Probably what the Packers thought they were getting in HaHa Clinton Dix, and it just didn't work out. So you have to have range, you have to have speed, and that's something we'll get into the cons with Nubin. I'm not 100% sold on that. Great size though, all of 6'2", 210. I think he had a core muscle repair in December, or a knee scope, something of that nature, like a minor surgery, not a reconstruction. So I don't know that I've seen, and people can correct me on this, I don't know that I've seen an official measurement for Tyler. But I'll just tell you, I know people around the Minnesota, program. He's taller than 6'1" is basically what I've been told. So they list him at 6'2". He is taller than 6'1". If he's actually 6'2", I don't know, but he's big. He's plenty big for a safety, not undersized at all. Really prototypical size, because he's not too big, and you start worrying about, well, how oily are his hips? What can he do? What can't he do? 6'2", 210 is like, bang, exactly what I'd like to see at safety, especially when you're matching up against some of these tight ends that are 6'5", 6'6", 270. Like, you can't be tiny, if you're in a jump ball situation. So, and I shouldn't say that. Plenty of small safeties get the job done. Antoine Winfield Jr. being one of them for sure. But Tyler Nubin, prototypical size. Quick trigger in the run game. Does not hesitate. That really does, it jumps out to me. And especially like when I was scouting him early and thinking, maybe Green Bay's still sticking with the Brandon Staley, like, two high safeties that have to fill the alley defense. I thought Tyler Nubin would have been great in that defense. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't fill one of the two roles that I, potentially see for him in Hafley's defense. But I just, like, when I was scouting him for, being one of the two high safeties that, like, John Johnson III did for the Rams forever, when I was scouting him as one of those guys, like, this guy can do it. He's decisive. Not that he gets cooked in play action, because he doesn't. Obviously, look at his passer ratings against, but he's decisive when he goes downhill, and takes good angles. As I mentioned earlier, gets guys on the ground. I like Nubin as a run defender, period, both in the tackling and the actual decision to make. The decision that it is a run and I'm going. Okay. It's not play action. It's not drop back. It's run. I need to hit my gap, and I need to hit it hard. And if the ball carrier happens to be in my gap, I'm making that tackle. I really think too, just instincts are important at the safety position, especially if you're looking for playmaking. Now, Green Bay, I think, would take an Adrian Amos type, where he's just like not a ton of playmaking, but just rock solid always. And kind of what they got in him when they signed him in Goody's first major offseason there. But he's more than that, right? Because you see the ball production. He's more than that. One thing that the Packers really struggled with, and I do blame a lot of this on Barry. I know I'm hard on him, but I think that's going to be the most night and day thing with Hafley. The linebackers and the safeties in the nickel just could not pass anything off. The communication in the back end was so bad, way more often than you should see on NFL tape. Just guys wandering by themselves down the middle of the field. Just stuff that can't happen. Nubin understands route concepts. Okay, Nubin understands where he needs to be to make a play on the ball, and I think Green Bay was going to improve in that department, like, either way, because with Barry and then moving to Hafley, and everybody knows how I felt about Joe. Great human being. I did not like the way he prepared his defense. The way you listen to some of these old D-backs, you go back and look at, when he had talented defensive backs, and were they even that talented at Ohio State? I mean, you look and see what ended up happening to Shaun Wade and Damon Arnett and Jeff Okudah. He might have been making some chicken chicken salad out of chicken, you know what. And again, I mean, for Big Ten, they were probably very good players, but Hafley's a brilliant secondary coach. Richard Sherman has said it. You've heard a number of guys talk about how smart he is, coordinating the back end, making the game plan simple to understand. You don't really even need to make the game plan simple to understand for Nubin. I think he's extremely bright. Like I've never talked to the young man, but just hearing what I've heard from around the program and then watching him on film and how much he gets football, very impressed. Okay, cons. I know this is, and I get a hard time for this, and I get it. I do. I understand that, measurables are not everything, and that my scouting or even, what I put out there on social media is super heavy on measurables. This is going to be a guy where I'm paying attention. Okay. I don't see a super athlete on film. And at the safety position, it's not 100% necessary. But if I don't think you can either absolutely wreck the game, inside like a Derwin James and play basically slot corner, rush a passer a little bit, do some Jamal Adams stuff. Not that I mean, I don't love Jamal Adams as a player, but I mean, if you're not like involved in the box causing all sorts of chaos and you're not an elite free safety or an elite center fielder, single high guy, you're probably getting like a round 2 or a round 3 from me, even if you're really, really good at your job, just because of the value of the safety position being a little bit depressed. And those the true cover one guys, so valuable. So that testing has to be good enough for him to stay with a round 2 grade. I will say, if I'm just not seeing what I'm not seeing on film, if he runs a low 4.5 and has elite change of direction, it's a 4.53, 4.54, elite change of direction, elite explosiveness, that's enough. Okay. If he runs in the 4.4s, probably got a first round grade. Even high 4.4s, he's going to have a first round grade for me. I don't know how likely that is, but for him to just show that, no, I am, even an 85th percentile athlete or an 80th percentile athlete will not make a move at all. Tyler Nubin comes back with an RAS above 9. He's probably going to bump up into the 20s for me. That's how good of a football player he is. I need to know how good of an athlete he is. Click to close range doesn't look explosive on film like that. These are all kind of athletic limitations that are showing up on film. So whether he's either hesitating or he's not the athlete that I think he is, or, the processing stuff, like, again, I want to stress, this is a guy I have a solid round 2 on. When I pick guys apart, it's because not everybody's a perfect prospect. So some of that click to close stuff that can just be athleticism, and he does not appear to have Malik Hooker range. He doesn't have, Nick Collins range. A few people do. If he did, he'd be, in my opinion, he'd be a top 15 prospect in this draft. He's got to be a good enough athlete to play free safety. Okay, like I said, 469, the massive majority of what he did at Minnesota, at least in 2023, was from the free safety position. I would guess he views himself as a free safety, even though he tackles plenty like a strong safety. I think he views himself as a free safety. If you're to ask him, Green Bay's going to have a free safety, and they're going to have kind of a box guy. Who are you? I think Tyler Nubin would tell you, I'm the free safety. I'm gonna make plays. I'm gonna break up passes. I'm gonna, give you 6-7 interceptions a year. I'm gonna be that guy. We better be a good enough athlete to be that guy. The other thing is, he turns 23 during training camp. His senior season was, in my opinion, easily his best season. Kind of a late bloomer. How much is there left? Does he have star potential? Now, not everybody you need to take, even in the second round, needs to be a star. Okay. I would like anybody in the top 50 to sort of have like that as their 90th percentile outcome, right? But if Tyler Nubin is just like, hey, I'll have 3 years where I sort of miss out on the Pro Bowl and Packers fans will complain, but then I'll have 8 other years that are just like, whatever a 77 overall in Madden is to you, just a rock solid starter, better than, like Morgan Burnett. Let's say Morgan Burnett, right? Better than Charlie Peppra, above the Charlie Peppra line. Morgan Burnett is that Nubin's kind of ceiling, is just like, I'm never going to be a Pro Bowler. I'm never going to be all pro, but I can be really damn good for 10 years. Is that a second round pick to me? Yeah. I mean, if you just said, hey, Nubin will never make a Pro Bowl, but he'll be a very good starter for 10 years. I would take him at 41 and not even stress, not even stress at all. Okay. The fit day one starter in Green Bay. They don't have anybody on the roster that I like more than Tyler Nubin, even Anthony Johnson Jr., who I was higher on than obviously when Green Bay took him, but certainly above Zane Anderson and above, if they're going to bring back Darnell Savage, if they're going to bring back Jonathan Owens, are they going to bring back Rudy Ford? All those, conversations. Nubin is a player I would rather have in a starting defensive role than any of those guys. Even if he ends up as the box safety, I think he can be kind of the Amos to maybe they give Darnell Savage one run at being the free safety. Maybe even seen some ideas about Keyshawn Nixon playing free safety. It's interesting-ish to me with some of his instincts and what he's able to do athletically. I've certainly seen, I hope my last snap of him as their preferred nickel. I'll just say that. But if he tests super well, guys, he can be more than that. If like I said, if Nubin is a 9+ RAS guy at the combine, he's moving into my top, 25, 24. He'll be probably in my ranks ahead of where Green Bay, has a pick at pick 25. He'll be, I don't know, I have to look, but 21, 22 range, 19 range, something in that, general area, because the ball production is just not something that they have on the back end. He would immediately be probably the top playmaker as far as getting his hands on the football the first snap of his rookie season. He's that instinctive, as I mentioned, 13 picks, 13 pass breakups. That's not common, folks. It's not. And he played college football. This is a minor thing, but he played college football in an outdoor stadium in the Big Ten. It's cold in Minneapolis, and it's cold at Huntington Bank Stadium. He understands playing up here, and Green Bay's moving from Minneapolis to Green Bay is not going to shock him. And I know that's a minor thing, but it's just something to understand when we're talking about the fit in Green Bay. Going from being a Golden Gopher to a Green Bay Packer is just not going to be that much of a transition. I think he'd be pretty seamless there. All right. As far as my official grade, it's a high round 2. Could easily jump, as I mentioned, to a round 1 grade with a good combine. With an iffy combine, though, could drop to a round 3. Just like if he's a, not necessarily a disqualifying athlete, but if he's a very average athlete and, does not have upside like that, he could move into the 50s, 60s for me and get a really high round 3 grade. But I don't think that's going to happen. I have zero problem with them taking him at pick 25, and I'm doing backflips if Green Bay gets Tyler Nubin at pick 41. He is my 34th ranked player overall, but very, very interested to see what he does in the NFL Combine and at his pro day. Folks, hope you enjoyed listening to this or watching this on YouTube. I must say, there are ways you can help us out. First of all, sign up for the pre-order of the Green Bay Draft Guide brought to you by Packer Report. There should be a link in this show description, whether you're on YouTube or whether you are taking this in via your favorite podcast app with, by the way, a promo code of DAILY, DAILY is in the Daily Draft to give you 10% off the best Packers draft guide there is. Jacob Morley does a great job with Packer people, understanding kind of where the thresholds are for Green Bay, what they do and don't like to take athletically. And you look at, man, his like tier 1 fits when they check all the boxes and how much that narrows down the list, and then how many guys the Packers have then taken after he's published that list. If you want to start getting knowledgeable about guys that might be Green Bay Packers, there's just nothing better than what he does. I pitch in a little bit. You'll get some of my expertise with the Green Bay Draft Guide as well. The other thing you can do is check us out at packerreport.com. If you were to become a VIP member, that would be tremendously meaningful for me. The first month is always $1. You just come check us out. We do a lot of free stuff over there, but there's some insider stuff, including a really deep dive on Jeff Hafley that is, of course, behind the VIP paywall. And that is the number one way to support your boy and support the rest of the folks at Packer Report. Finally, guys, like and subscribe everything that's going on here at the Pack a Day podcast. Have a great rest of your day and go Pack Go.